Quick question. How much money do you have right now? Got a number in your head? Good. Now, what if I told you most of that money doesn't actually exist? At least, not the way you think it does. And here's the really weird part. If everyone on Earth paid off all their debt tomorrow, most of that money would just vanish. Poof. Gone. Sounds insane, right? Money is money. It's right there in your account. But to understand why that's not quite true, we have to build money from scratch. So let's start a brand new world. One island, zero money, and figure out where money actually comes from. By the end of this, I promise you'll never look at your bank balance the same way again. Okay, here's our island. A handful of people wash ashore, and at first, everyone does everything themselves. You grow your own food, build your own hut, sew your own clothes. The problem? You're terrible at most of it. Being a part-time farmer, part-time builder, part-time tailor just means you're bad at 3 jobs instead of great at 1. So people start to specialize. Maria's brilliant at farming, so she grows all the wheat. Tom catches the fish. Sam makes the shoes. Now everyone does what they're best at, and the island produces way more stuff. There's just one catch. Now everybody depends on everybody else. Maria's got piles of wheat, but she can't eat wheat for every meal. She wants fish. So she walks over to Tom, and this is where it gets messy. Maria wants Tom's fish, but Tom doesn't want wheat. He just ate. Tom wants new shoes. So now Maria has to go find Sam, trade her wheat for shoes, carry the shoes back to Tom, and pray Tom hasn't changed his mind in the meantime. Economists have a fancy name for this headache, the double coincidence of wants. You can only trade if the other person happens to want exactly what you've got at exactly the same moment. And it gets worse. What if Maria wants a fishing boat worth, say, 1,000 fish? She can't hand over 1,000 loaves of bread. They'd be moldy before she finished counting. Wheat rots, fish rots, and you can't pay your barber with half a chicken. Barter, basically, is a disaster. So the islanders get clever. They notice that a few things are wanted by almost everyone. So instead of trading for what you need directly, you first trade for one of these everybody wants it things, and use that as a middle step. On our island, let's say it's rare, pretty seashells. Maria sells her wheat for shells, and now she can buy fish, shoes, anything, because everyone accepts shells. Boom. That's money. And this really happened. Throughout history, people used salt, cattle, grain, even giant stone wheels. Quick side note, the word salary comes from the Latin word salarium, which has sal, salt, buried right inside it. But that popular story about Roman soldiers being paid in actual salt? Mostly a myth. Salt is bulky, cheap, and literally dissolves in the rain. Handing heavy sacks of it to an army would have been a nightmare. So soldiers were actually paid in durable silver coins. The salarium was really just a cash allowance to buy salt, and over time, the word stretched to mean your whole paycheck. And honestly, that little story makes the point perfectly. Real money had to be durable and portable, not something that rots or washes away. Which is exactly why, over time, most of the world landed on the same champions: gold and silver. Why? Because good money needs a few things. It shouldn't rot. You should be able to split it into smaller pieces. It should be easy to carry, and it has to be rare enough that not just anyone can make more. Gold ticks every box, so our islanders melt it into coins, and now they've got proper money. But gold has one annoying problem. It's heavy, and lugging a sack of it around is basically an invitation to get robbed. Enter the island's first banker. Picture a guy with a big, secure vault. Let's call him the goldsmith. People start leaving their gold with him for safekeeping, And in return, he hands them a little paper note. Basically, a written promise that says, the holder of this paper can come collect 10 gold coins from my vault anytime. It's an IOU. That's just short for I owe you, a written promise to pay someone back. Now here's the magic. When Maria wants to buy that boat, she doesn't hike to the vault and drag her gold across the island. She just hands over the paper note. And the seller takes it happily because he knows he can cash it in for real gold whenever he likes. So the paper itself starts getting passed around as money, and nobody actually moves the gold anymore. Read that again, because it's the whole secret of modern money. People started trading promises instead of the thing itself. And then the goldsmith notices something that changes everything. On any given day, almost nobody comes to collect their actual gold. They just keep swapping paper notes. So most of the gold sits in the vault doing nothing. And the goldsmith thinks, what if I lend out notes for gold that no one's currently asking for? So when Sam comes in wanting to borrow money for a bigger workshop, the goldsmith writes him a brand new paper note, a fresh IOU. Sam spends it, it circulates, everyone accepts it, and just like that, new money exists that wasn't there a minute ago. No one mined more gold. The banker created it out of a promise. That right there is the moment money stops being a thing you hold and becomes a number somebody owes. Now, fast forward to today, and here's the first big shock. We've dropped gold completely. Up until 1971, the US dollar was still officially backed by gold. You could, in theory, swap your dollars for actual gold. Then President Nixon cut that final cord. Since then, no major currency on Earth is backed by gold, or silver, or anything physical sitting in a vault. So if you're wondering, is my money backed by something solid at the bank? The honest answer is no. It's backed by trust. Economists call this fiat money, money that's valuable simply because we all agree it is, and because the government says so. But the really wild part is who actually makes the money. And to see it, you need to meet two very different players, because mixing them up is where everyone gets confused. Player 1, the central bank. Think the Federal Reserve or the Bank of England. It's the only one allowed to physically print cash, the actual notes and coins, and it sets the rules of the game. Think of it as the referee and the official printing press. Player 2, your commercial bank, the everyday one with the app on your phone. It has no printing press. It cannot legally print a single banknote. So you'd assume the central bank makes most of our money, right? Wrong. And this is the part that genuinely surprises people. Of all the money in the economy, only about 3% is physical cash made by the central bank. The other 97%, it's created by ordinary commercial banks. Let that sink in. Almost all the money in your country wasn't printed by the government at all. It was created by regular banks. How on earth do they do that? Let's follow Jack. Jack wants to build a boat, but he's broke. So he walks into the bank and asks for a loan of $100. The bank says yes. Now, here's what you'd expect. The bank opens a big vault, scoops out 100 coins, and hands them over. But that's not what happens. The banker just opens Jack's account on the computer and types in 100. Done. That 100 didn't come from a vault. It didn't come from anyone else's savings. It simply did not exist a second ago. And now it does, because the bank typed it. So what just happened? Two things. Jack has to pay that 100 back over time. So Jack owes the bank. But that 100 now sitting in Jack's account is money he can spend right now, which means the bank owes it to him. And that second part is the one that should blow your mind. The balance in your banking app isn't a stack of cash with your name on it. It's just the bank's promise to hand you that money whenever you ask. In plain terms, the money in your account is the bank's debt to you. And before you call this a conspiracy theory, it's not. The Bank of England, one of the most respected central banks in the world, spelled it out in a 2014 paper. The vast majority of money is created by commercial banks as numbers in a ledger every single time they approve a loan. Okay, so if making a loan creates money, what happens when you pay it back? Watch closely because this is the part that breaks people's brains. When Jack repays his 100, that money doesn't get tucked into a vault somewhere. It just disappears, deleted, gone, because it only ever existed as a record of his debt. And once the debt is settled, so is the money. So new loans are constantly creating money, and repayments are constantly destroying it. The total amount of money out there isn't a fixed amount that just sits still. It's more like water in a bathtub with the tap running and the drain open at the same time. As long as new loans pour in about as fast as old ones drain out, the level stays roughly steady. Money is a flow, not a pile. Which brings us right back to that crazy claim from the start. What if everyone, every person, every business, every government paid off all their debt at once? Every mortgage, every car loan, every credit card, all settled. Well, follow the logic. Every time a loan is repaid, the money tied to it vanishes. So if all the debt disappeared, most of the money would disappear right along with it. The bathtub drains to almost nothing. Economists actually have a name for this mind bender, the paradox of debt. A system built like this needs a certain amount of borrowing just to keep money circulating at all. Zero debt doesn't mean a rich, free economy. It means an economy with no fuel left in the tank. Now, when people first hear all this, a lot of them land on the same uneasy thought. If money only exists because of debt, isn't the whole system basically designed to keep us borrowing forever? So the banks always win? It's a fair suspicion, and honestly, you can see how you get there. But most economists would say, hold on, this isn't a trap, it's plumbing. Debt isn't evil, it's fuel. When a loan builds a boat, starts a business, or buys a family a home, it creates real value. New borrowing replacing old repayments isn't a prison. It's more like blood circulating through a body. The goal was never zero debt. It's healthy, sustainable debt. And before you panic that banks can just conjure up infinite money, they can't. Remember the referee? The central bank uses tools like interest rates and reserve rules specifically to keep this from spiraling out of control. When borrowing runs too hot, they make it more expensive to cool things down. It's a balancing act, and it doesn't always go perfectly, but there is a hand on the dial. So let's zoom all the way back out. We started with a few people washed up on an empty island, swapping fish for wheat. And step by step, seashells, then gold coins, then paper IOUs, and finally just numbers on a screen. Money kept turning into a more and more abstract promise. And here's the idea that ties it all together. Money was never really about gold or paper or metal. Those were just the containers. Money has always been about one thing: trust. A shared story we all agree to believe. That number in your account isn't treasure in a vault with your name on it. It's a promise, sitting on top of someone else's promise, sitting on top of someone else's. A giant, surprisingly well-organized chain of IOUs. The whole global economy, basically running on trust and paperwork. But here's a thought to chew on. So where does it go from here? If trust is really all that matters, what could carry that trust next? Digital currencies? Something we haven't even invented yet? Or something stranger than all of it? I'm genuinely curious what you think. Drop it in the comments. What do you think money becomes next? So if your brain feels a little rewired right now, good. That was the entire point. And if money is really just a story we tell each other, that raises an even bigger question. Why does that story slowly lose value over time? Why is the money in your pocket worth a little less every single year? That's exactly where we're headed next. Subscribe so you don't miss it, and we'll figure that one out together.